Welcome back to the most unprofessional sports channel on YouTube. Welcome back to Swivel Chair Sports. I'm your host, Zach Circlebark Burkle. Here with my co-host today, Aaron. Go ahead and say hi, Aaron.
Hi.
If you enjoy our content, please make sure to like and subscribe. Other than that, let's go ahead and get into it. So, in this video, a little bit cheerier than we've been in the last 2 weeks of Chiefs videos. But we'll be talking about the Kansas City Chiefs. After their win over the New England Patriots. Some are saying they may be back on track. I'm not. I am saying that they are not back on track at all. They just played a really bad team and happened to outplay a really bad team, which is great. They couldn't even score 30 on a really bad team. So I'm still not convinced that they're back to normal. Kadarius Toney with another horrendous drop that resulted in a pick, not a pick six, just a pick. And honestly could have cost the Chiefs the game at that point. But it didn't, luckily. I don't know. Go ahead and give us your first takes of this game, Aaron.
Well, I kind of disagree with how you're approaching this game.
Really? You're looking at it positively?
Yeah, I mean, you said we're beating up on a bad team, and yeah, they're bad, but their defense is not their weak point, it's their offense. I mean, they consistently hold good teams to, low 20s. I mean, the most points they've given up this season is 31 to the Dolphins, 25 to the Eagles, 29 to the Bills. So they're not. Defense is not their problem. I mean, They lost 3 straight, giving up 10 points or less.
I don't know.
So the problems that we had and the problems that they had kind of mashed up. We're struggling on offense. They're struggling on offense. They're good at defense. We're good at defense, and our offense came out and put up 30 points against a good defense. So, I don't think all problems are solved. I think it's a step in the right direction. Getting Rashee Rice more involved. Looking at, Kelsey as always, but kind of limiting the targets to our weaker guys, I think, is the main thing. Don't send MVS on these deep routes where he can't catch the ball. Don't send Toney out of the backfield without the ball in his hands, because he just literally hands it to the other team. At this point, if he lines up at wide receiver, it's 10 versus 12.
Yeah.
So, I did see Andy Reid say he's got to have Richie James in there more, which I agree. I would like to see what he can do.
I
definitely think it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I liked Richie James on the Giants. I thought he was really solid last year whenever he got actual opportunities towards the end of the season as their core got hurt throughout the year. So I don't hate the thought. I actually loved the Richie James signing when we brought him in, mostly as a return man, which he's actually been mediocre at best at, you could say, this season. He hasn't really impressed me at much in the return game this season. I guess at least you could say he hasn't turned the ball over there, which is better than what Sky Moore was doing. So, yeah, he's been doing his job. I wouldn't hate seeing him in there more, especially with Kadarius Toney hopefully getting his snaps limited more and more. I wouldn't hate seeing, I think you kind of alluded to this as you were talking, I wouldn't hate seeing Kadarius Toney being maybe converted to a running back role, because with the ball in his hands, he's really, really scary, I think, as an opposing team. You look at him, and if he has the ball in his hands, he could break your ankles and run for 70 after the fact. Problem with him, for the most part, is you're struggling to get the ball in his hands because he's dropping everything going his way. So, I think if you kind of eliminate that middleman of the whole passing thing and just hand it off to him, maybe he can do something a little bit there. I think he'd be a really good complement to Isaiah Pacheco as well, especially with McKinnon kind of being limited this year as opposed to how he's been in the past And then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's actually since taken over from McKinnon these last two, or taken over for Pacheco these last 2 weeks, he's actually been pretty solid. Credit where credit's due. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has not been the reason we lost last week. He's been decent. Do I think he's a long-term answer for the Chiefs in the backfield? No. I think Pacheco's great, and I think if we want a better complementary piece to him, we may need to look somewhere else. But
you think he was decent?
He's been decent the last 2 weeks. For what he was expected.
13 carries for 37 yards? That's decent.
But look at the passing game. 4 catches for 64 and a touchdown.
That's not what I'm looking for out of my running back. That's great.
If we throw the ball 37
that's a nice
times,
bonus, but I want more than 2.8 yards a carry out of my running back.
That's fair, but that's not the role we had him in. Like 13 carries, we were not expecting him to run for 5 yards a carry at that point. If we're throwing the ball almost 40 times a game,
I think we would if he could.
Maybe, and that's a different story for a different day. But I don't think that's the role we were expecting him to be. Maybe when we first drafted him, but not these last 2 weeks. These last 2 weeks, he's been looked at as an extension of the passing game. We've been looking at short passes as being like our running game essentially, because we know Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not going to be able to get you a lot of yards on the run, but he's decent catching the ball out of the backfield, and that's what I'm talking about right now as far as being a complement to Isaiah Pacheco, because Isaiah Pacheco, he's going to get you 4, 5, maybe even yards a carry. You need that second running back who's a better pass catcher out of the backfield, more elusive even. And Clyde's been pretty solid in that role these last 2 weeks.
Edwards-Helaire is not elusive. I will tell you that.
He's been good out of the backfield catching the ball, though.
He's been good catching the ball. He's not elusive.
Okay, sure. I think he's, believe it or not, I think he's a little bit more elusive than Isaiah Pacheco, because Isaiah Pacheco is more likely to run through you than he is to juke out of your
Isaiah
shoes.
Pacheco just doesn't know how to avoid contact.
That's what I'm saying, though. What is that?
When he puts his foot in the ground, it takes an extra second for the ground to get back up because he stomped so hard.
That's exactly what elusiveness is, though. Is avoiding contact.
No. There's a difference between being elusive and the way Pacheco runs.
No.
He just gets whacked.
Yeah, I know he pops right back up. Granted, credit where it's due.
He does.
No, I love watching the kid play. He's so fun to watch. But being elusive is avoiding contact, and you just said he doesn't know how to do that, so he's not elusive at all.
I didn't say Pacheco was elusive.
I say Clyde's more elusive. Yes, I did. That's what I said.
I would maybe disagree with that.
I think he's a little bit more elusive than Isaiah Pacheco is, but whatever. That's not the argument we're having. I think he's been fine. I think Clyde's been fine. Would our offense be better with Pacheco in the last 2 weeks? Absolutely. But I think Clyde's been fine in the role that we've expected him to be in. Like I said, we weren't expecting him to rush for 4 yards per carry in Pacheco's absence. We were expecting him to be able to catch the ball in the backfield. That's what he's been able to do. So, yeah, I don't think this was as encouraging as you're making it out to be of a game. It was encouraging, sure. But I don't think 27 points against... I think New England's kind of checked out for the year. I don't think... If we would have scored 27 points on New England 4 weeks ago, then sure, I think that would be something to say. But let's be honest. New England's not playing for anything at this point. They don't give a crap.
You're right. The players aren't playing for future contracts and putting good film up. They don't do that in the NFL.
You can
Bill
say
Belichick, he loves to phone it in at the end of the season. That's totally his MO.
I mean, after losing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games straight before beating the Steelers by 3, yeah, I think you might be phoning the season in. But that's just me. The first half had me worried. You don't think that being tied with the Patriots at halftime is concerning?
It's what we do every game. We suck until a 2-minute warning, then we put up 7 points, and then the second half's a completely different story for the most part. That's the entire season so far. I'm not saying it's not worrying. I do hate it. It's very frustrating. But to say that, against the Patriots, this is some big deal. No, it's the way the Chiefs have been all season.
Right, which has been bad, in my opinion. The Chiefs have been not great. They've been above average.
I'm saying it's not away from the status quo.
I'm not saying it's away from the status quo. That's my concern, though, is that the status quo is not good.
I would say that it's not optimal. It's definitely not good not scoring until 2 minutes. That definitely needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
But as a whole, our offense was very bad for the last,
month?
3-4 games?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Outside of the Raiders game, which I don't count that because it's the Raiders, and at that time they still had Josh McDaniels as head coach, so that definitely doesn't count. Yeah.
I think what your premise on the Patriots is sort of misguided. Sure, teams, kind of get fed up and lose hope at the end of the season, but to say that players don't try.
I'm not saying they don't try. I'm saying they maybe try a little less. But
this is they're playing for contract.
Yeah, but they're less. Yeah, but you can't tell me that a 3 and whatever the heck team isn't, maybe not going to put in that little extra effort it would take to keep such and such from scoring, or maybe running a little bit harder to keep such and such from making that big catch. I think you're fooling yourself. Because if you're a bad team, you
okay.
Then
I guess I'm fooling myself.
Okay. Do you think the Chiefs can succeed with this receiving core in the playoffs this year?
I think it's going to take a lot, and it's going to take a lot of adjustments.
Yeah.
I think a heavy focus on Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce with mixed in Richie James at this point. Every now and again, Christian Watson and Sky Moore if he's healthy by
Justin
then.
Watson.
Justin Watson, sorry.
Yeah. I wish we had Christian Watson.
Yeah. I think it's time to sort of cut ties with the people who have shown time and time again that they either cost us games or aren't helping.
Yeah. Obviously, Rashee Rice and
if we don't, it's all on the coaching staff because it shouldn't be on Mahomes to do that.
No, I agree. At this point, you gotta set Kadarius Toney and maybe even MVS and Sky Moore at times in favor of Richie James and Justin Watson because at least Justin Watson can catch the frickin' ball. He may not be as athletic or dangerous with it in his hands as Kadarius.
Or be able to keep his feet after he catches it.
Or be able to stay on his damn feet after catching the ball because for whatever reason, maybe it weighs too much. I don't know. But yeah, at least he can catch the damn thing. Kadarius and get open. That's another thing. That's Sky Moore's problem. Sky Moore, he doesn't have. I think he only has 2 drops this year. That's not too bad. The dude can't even get open though. That's his issue. Am I wrong for saying that?
I think so. I
don't ever see.
If I remember correctly, last year he averaged like 3 yards
of separation.
Yeah. I would be very surprised if it was any different this year. So I just think it's partly not looking for him. So early on in the season, Mahomes was focused on um, finding Kelsey that those first 5-6 games, and then you're in your ways, and they just kind of, I don't know, just don't look for him for some reason. Now, is he like the best at getting open? No. Is he the best with the ball in his hands after the catch? No. But does he deserve to be like that number 3 target? I would argue probably, because he's healthy. He doesn't make all the mistakes that MVS and Tony have shown that they do.
So I just found out Sky Moore's out for the year.
Yeah, they placed him on IR.
Yeah, so out for the regular season.
I saw that.
Yeah, out for the regular season at least. The funny thing on this fantasy app, his absence won't impact the Chiefs' offense from a fantasy perspective.
Well, yeah.
And yeah, he's got one game this year with more than 40 yards. And only 2 with more than 30. So, not great. Granted, that doesn't necessarily mean he's not getting open. But he's been on the field a lot more than Kadarius Toney. And he's only got one game with more than 4 targets. So, that would at least indicate he might not be getting open. Because I would assume you would throw to him if he's open. But you could be right. It could just be a fact that we're just not looking for him. That could be what it is. As for Kadarius Toney, believe it or not, which this is crazy to say, with how impactful he's been in a negative way more often than not at the end of games. Did you know that Kadarius Toney has only had 3 games this year with a snap percentage over 40?
A snap percentage?
He's played less than 40% of the snaps in all but 3 games this year.
That, makes complete sense to me. The only players that I would be surprised if they played less than 50% of the snaps, as far as kind of receiving core goes,
would be MVS, Sky Moore.
No. Would be Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce, because they rotate everybody so often. I would be very annoyed, because it would be like, how do you find a rhythm if you run 2 routes and then you run off the field,
Yeah, I know Sky Moore hasn't had 70% in any game this year. Let me look at MVS real quick, because that could be what it is. That could be why they're not catching the ball, is because they're not getting in a rhythm. They're not getting that rhythm. And maybe that's all it is. Maybe because, Scantling as well has had 1 game over 70% of snaps. Obviously, Travis Kelce's going to have a high amount. I'm not even going to bother looking him up. Sky Moore had around 50 to 60 for most games. Rashee Rice, how many games do you think he's had over 70%?
Only the last few.
The last 2.
I would say.
Yep, the last 2. That's it. So maybe that's the biggest problem. Maybe that's what it is these receivers can't get in a rhythm because you're rotating them in every 1 or 2 plays. It could be something as simple as that. I would like to think so. With Rashee Rice getting more consistent snap counts, I think he'll, and he already has kind of started to, pick it up and be more consistent. Maybe even flirt with 100 yards every game. But as far as who that number 2 receiver is, I don't know who it's going to be at this point. The only one I haven't looked at.
It's nobody at this point.
Yeah, it's really nobody at this point. If we look at Justin Watson, who's kind of like the last guy I haven't looked at, He has 0 games with 70% or more. Last game he had 68%, but there's really nobody who's that like clear-cut number 2 right now. It's kind of 3-4 guys alternating in with MVS, Justin Watson, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, and now Richie James. So I don't know what to expect.
This offense this year seems like it's scripted solely to have this play is for this player.
Yeah.
This play is for this player.
Yep.
It's no like this route concept.
No matter who's at
lead
this,
people this way,
yeah.
so you can go like here
Yeah,
or you can go
right.
here.
Like
It's
we're gonna
this
run
play
this
is
play
for
no
this
matter
person,
who's on.
And if
Who's
and
the
if they're
X
not
receiver?
open, then
Who's the wide
it's
receiver?
scrambled drill.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Doesn't matter who's the X receiver, who's the wide receiver. We're running this play. There's none of that this year. It seems like we've got this play for Kadarius Toney, and now we have this play for Sky Moore, and now we have this play for MVS, and now we have this play for Rashee Rice. Maybe that's why they're not getting open too, is because all of a sudden Sky Moore comes into the game. Receivers or the DBs on the other side are like, Sky Moore hasn't been in the game in the last 4 plays. This play is drawn up for Sky Moore. Let's shade him a little extra. Boom, Sky Moore can't get open. Now we're panicking. MVS comes into the game. MVS hasn't been in the game for the last 3 or 4 snaps. This play's got to be for MVS. Why would they bring him in the game? Boom, blanket him. Now we're panicking. Maybe that's why. 2, like maybe we're cracking the code, Aaron. Maybe they need to put us in the OC office, co-OCs. We'll do it for free. We'll
offer free advice.
Yeah.
I mean, we're stupid, but we'll offer free advice.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I wouldn't trust it, but we'll offer it.
I mean, maybe you like look at it for like maybe 2 seconds and then you throw it away, but
yeah. But at least I'll offer. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe that consistent playing time is the issue right now. And then obviously kind of being able to tell what we're going to do as a defensive team. I don't know. Luckily, the defense has kept us in games. Because, I don't know. Anything to add?
Question.
Yeah.
Do you think this team misses Juju Smith-Schuster?
No. I think... No, I don't think they're missing Juju Smith-Schuster. I think... So, I've had this argument. I actually had this argument on Facebook in a comments section of some Kansas City Chiefs fan page. I earned top fan for that page now because of that argument, actually.
Because you're arguing with random people on the internet?
I guess, yeah. I don't know. For whatever... I usually don't do that. Usually I'm like, that's a waste of my time. For whatever reason, I was feeling bold this day. And I was arguing with him. He was like, the receivers are the problem this year. That's why we're losing games. And I said, I think the issue... Because like the headline of the article that was posted on Facebook was like... and this was a while ago. Now they've, funnily enough, said the complete opposite on different posts that they've posted. But this one specifically said, don't blame the loss of Eric Bieniemy and Matt Nagy being promoted as why the Chiefs' offense is bad this year. And my comment was, well, the only other difference, unless Juju Smith-Schuster was the second coming of Jerry Rice, the biggest adjustment this offseason was Matt Nagy in place of Eric Bieniemy. Because you cannot sit there and tell me that Juju Smith-Schuster is the difference in 2-3 wins. No way. No way you can sit there and tell me that. Not when we replace him. If we didn't replace him, then maybe you could make that argument. But not when we replace him with Rashee Rice, who has been by far our best wide receiver this year, is not that much worse than what Juju was for us last year, for the most part, outside of maybe drop percentage. But you cannot sit there and tell me that's the difference in winning 14 games versus 11 or 12. You cannot sit there and tell me that.
Maybe I could.
Why?
What if it's him and Rashee out there instead of Rashee and Toney?
Do we draft Rashee if Juju's on the team, though? I don't know if
I
we
mean,
do.
we let Juju go because he was a free agent.
Right, but
We
like
didn't trade him for anybody.
right, but I'm saying like, would we have drafted a receiver in the first round if we had Juju Smith-Schuster on the roster? I don't think so.
Why wouldn't we?
Because I don't think we would think we wouldn't see it as a priority. I
I
don't
mean,
think.
we lost McCole Hardman too.
Yeah, but I don't think with the fact that we won the Super Bowl without him last year, I don't think Veach saw him as a huge loss. I don't think if Juju Smith-Schuster was on the roster during the draft, I don't think Brett Veach looks at receiver in that first round.
I disagree. Where else would we go?
Something.
I mean,
on the
Mahomes
defensive
said he
side,
liked
maybe.
Rashee Rice. I mean, it's not like they went out and solely targeted Rashee Rice looking for a receiver. They just happened to be working out in pre-draft, and Mahomes was like, "Hey, take a look at this guy," and they're like, "Oh yeah, you like him? We kind of like his tape. Let's draft him." And then they drafted him.
Right,
So
but
it's
I
not
don't.
like they were solely like looking for a receiver or something.
No, I know they weren't looking specifically for a receiver, but I think they were less. I think they're less likely to take a receiver in the first round. Maybe they're like, let's see if we can get him in the second, and then boom, he's gone before the Chiefs' pick comes, because they don't see receiver as a priority. But
I think everybody saw receiver as a priority for the Chiefs. Nobody,
even with Juju
nobody's
around,
saying
though,
that.
I think with Juju
Nobody's
around,
saying Juju is a great receiver. He's a solid number 2 receiver. We clearly last year did miss having like a Tyreek Hill, a number 1 receiver. So I definitely, granted whether we signed Juju or not, thought we needed a receiver, a good young receiver, especially losing McCole Hardman and the lack of promise that Sky Moore has shown so far.
No, and I agree, and I'm the biggest Sky Moore doubter of anybody. Like, don't get me wrong, I didn't see anything in him his rookie year. I thought Kadarius Toney was worthy of a number 1, maybe number 1, at least number 2 receiver spot after last season. I was wrong. He's clearly not. But what I'm thinking is that if we have Juju Smith-Schuster and Kadarius Toney, the way we were looking at Kadarius Toney this offseason as being a number 1, I would assume that if we had Juju, we would look at those as our 1-2 and like, why would we need another receiver? We've got those as our 1-2. We've got Sky Moore as our 3. We have Justin Watson, who is our 4, who at the previous season had showed promise. I don't think we look at that as being like, oh, we definitely need a receiver, because we look and like, oh, we have 4 competent ones right here. Why do we need to draft one in the first round? Let's draft like a defensive tackle or something, just in case Chris Jones walks out, who at the time had not re-signed. He was still questioned whether or not he would come back to Kansas City. Why wouldn't we go look at D tackle in the first round?
I think you're kind of looking at it as maybe like an early round pick versus a later in the round pick, right? So we're not drafting top 15. All of these superstar, like D tackles, they're gone by then, right? All these superstar DNs are gone by then. The Chiefs make their defensive money going after kind of unsought after, late round DBs, DNs, linebackers.
But the previous season we had drafted a defensive lineman in the first round.
Karlaftis, is that who you're talking about?
And
then we signed Omenahu.
I know he's an edge rusher.
Why would we go?
I think we would look. I think personally, I think we would have looked at potentially losing Chris Jones as like, oh shoot, we need to replace that guy. I know we're not going to get a superstar at the 30th pick in the draft or whatever, but I'm sure there was. I'd have to look at the draft class to know exactly who was available. But I'm sure there was a D tackle who went early in the second round.
I would 100% agree that D line is another place where we're short, especially looking for like a run stopper. But I don't think that it's necessarily much higher than looking at a receiver. And at that point, you got to take best player available. And Mahomes liked him, so I don't know why you wouldn't why you would argue against us not necessarily drafting him.
I wouldn't argue against us drafting him. I love Rashee Rice. I would love if we got him regardless. I just think the Chiefs. I'm going to end it with this because we've rambled on, or we went back and forth on this thing for like 15 minutes. I just think we would be less likely to draft a receiver in the first round if we knew Juju Smith-Schuster was coming back. I think a big reason the Chiefs front office was like, okay, maybe we will take a look at this guy. I think they would have taken a look at him regardless, sure. But I think they would have been like less likely to be like, ooh, yeah, we could use that if we had Juju on the team. But that's...
I disagree.
Fair enough. But I'm tired of going around in circles about that same topic. So unless you have anything else,
no.
That'll do it here for the most unprofessional sports channel on YouTube, Swivel Chair Sports. I'm your host, Zach Zuckerberg Burkle, with my co-host today, Aaron. Probably the most heated debate we've had so far in the history of Swivel Chair Sports. Go and say bye, Aaron.
Bye.
All right, that'll do it. Deuces.